The Cross Bronx Expressway is what happens when a living city gets treated like a cutting board. From 1948 to 1972, Robert Moses carved a giant trench through some of America's densest neighborhoods, displacing an estimated 40 to 60,000 people. Shifting it slightly south would have spared thousands of homes. He ran it through occupied apartment blocks instead. Today, more than 200,000 vehicles a day move through this corridor, and nearly 1 in 5 is a truck. That's the highest freight share of any highway in New York City. Residents living nearby are 4 times more likely than people elsewhere in the city to end up in the emergency room for pollution-related asthma. So is it finally coming down? No. A 2025 city and state study identified 13 spots where CAPS could reconnect the street grid at around $2 billion each. None are funded. The state's actual project here is rebuilding 5 aging bridges, which locals fear is a widening plan in disguise. There's no money to reconnect the neighborhoods. There's always a plan to make the highway a little bigger. I-10 in New Orleans didn't just split a neighborhood in 2. It landed on top of its most important street. In 1968, Louisiana built the elevated highway directly above North Claiborne Avenue in Trem, one of the oldest black neighborhoods in America. The avenue underneath held 4 rows of live oaks and a busy commercial strip. Bulldozers ripped out the trees and planted concrete columns where the trunks stood. Around 500 homes were destroyed. On one 8-block stretch, registered businesses fell from 132 in 1960 to about 35 by 2000. Locals named it the Monster. If you're waiting for the highway to come down, don't. The state received a $500,000 grant, not for removal, for studying connectivity improvements. Full removal is estimated to cost more than $4 billion. So instead, in 2024, the neighborhood got a $2.4 million plaza built underneath the highway. That's hanging nice paintings in a room with no roof and calling it a renovation. The 8081 Viaduct is different because this time the state actually went through with it. Between 1959 and 1969, New York ran this 1.4-mile viaduct through the 15th Ward, displacing about 1,300 families from the heart of the city's black community. For 50 years it aged, grew crash-prone, and walled downtown off from University Hill. Then the state did what other cities only discuss. It decided to tear it down. A street-level community grid will take its place, and through traffic will shift onto the old I-481 loop. Construction started in spring 2023, and the first pieces of the elevated sections are already gone. In July 2026, New York awarded the $2.1 billion contract for Phase 2. That's the largest contract in the state transportation department's history. Debating whether highway removal works used to be easy. Now the experiment isn't on paper, it's happening live in the middle of a city. NY33 in Buffalo destroyed something you can't put back afterward. Humboldt Parkway was a 200-foot green boulevard designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, linking 2 of his parks through the city's east side. Then the engineers arrived. In the 1950s and 60s, they dug out the boulevard and sank a 6-lane highway where the trees used to stand. Today, around 75,000 vehicles a day roll through a black neighborhood that's been breathing the exhaust for 60 years. New York proposed spending about $1 billion to cap 4,100 feet and add green space. Sounds reasonable until residents sued to stop it. They argued the lid would concentrate exhaust at both tunnel entrances instead of restoring the boulevard. In February 2025, a judge halted the project and demanded a full environmental review. The state didn't appeal. It started over from scratch. Listening sessions ran through 2026, and construction is now expected to begin around 2028. The state said it wanted to bring the park back. The neighborhood saw a brand new smokestack. I-10 in Houston is one of America's most expensive traffic experiments, and it failed in public. Texas spent $2.8 billion widening the highway west of downtown. By 2008, some sections reached 26 lanes, the widest freeway on the planet. The theory was simple. More lanes, less traffic. Instead, induced demand took over. More people drove, the lanes filled, and congestion returned worse than before. By 2014, morning trips were taking about 30% longer than before the expansion, and evening trips about 55% longer. Texas paid $2.8 billion and got extra delay in return. More than 200,000 vehicles still use it daily, and nobody is discussing removal. Texas is rebuilding it again, this time above flood level, with closures through 2026. Houston isn't solving its traffic problem. It's funding the same highway over and over again. I-980 in Oakland might be the most pointless mile and a half of interstate in America. Its 560-foot path erased 503 houses, 4 churches, and 22 businesses in West Oakland. It was meant to feed a Second Bay Bridge to San Francisco. That bridge was never built. Not delayed, never built. What Oakland got instead was a giant freeway trench, completed in 1985, running at roughly half its designed capacity. A concrete wall separating West Oakland from downtown, an entire neighborhood erased for a ramp that leads nowhere. Caltrans now openly admits the routing came from racially discriminatory decisions. Vision 980 offers three options: repair it, cap it, or remove it. Removal dominates public meetings. Feasibility starts in 2026. Construction funding is zero. There was money when the neighborhood was being demolished. There isn't any yet to bring it back. I-75 and I-85 in Atlanta form a giant canyon with a highway at the bottom. They merge into a trench up to 12 lanes wide, carrying over 400,000 vehicles a day through the city center. Building and widening it destroyed historic black neighborhoods and cut downtown off from Midtown for 60 years. The proposed cure, the Stitch, would cap part of the downtown connector with 14 acres of parkland, literally stitching the city back together. In 2024, it won a $157 million federal grant, one of the region's largest. Then July 2025 arrived. Congress clawed back $151 million, wiping out roughly three-quarters of the first phase budget overnight. Atlanta still didn't quit. The city set up a special downtown tax district and has secured around $50 million to keep the first phase moving. The project is still advancing, but its timeline depends on new funding. Washington walked away from the project. Atlanta decided to pick up the bill for putting its own city back together. I-375 in Detroit was only about a mile long. For decades, it was the country's shortest signed interstate. Yet it was still enough to erase an entire world. Opened in 1964, it finished off Black Bottom and Paradise Valley, the cultural and economic heart of Black Detroit. Hastings Street went with them. 60 years later, Michigan planned a surface boulevard, backed by a roughly $105 million federal grant. Then residents saw the design. The boulevard would reach 9 lanes at some intersections. Locals called it a highway in a costume. Replacing one highway with a 9-lane road isn't city planning. It's a rebrand. In August 2025, with the cost estimate approaching $520 million, the state paused the entire project. A smaller plan came out that November. Drainage work goes first, the boulevard conversion slides to 2027 and 2028, and the reclaimed land shrinks from about 30 acres to just 9. Planning restarted in November 2025, but the redesign remains uncertain. The proof. So what actually happens when a city really removes one of these highways? Most of the time, the traffic meltdown people fear never happens. Part of the traffic just plain disappears. Researchers examined around 100 cases where road capacity was removed. Traffic on the affected corridors dropped an average of 41%, and only about half of the missing traffic reappeared on nearby streets. So roughly a quarter of all that traffic didn't move to another road, it vanished. San Francisco proved this twice. When the quake-damaged Central Freeway was converted into the surface-level Octavia Boulevard, daily traffic fell from roughly 90,000 vehicles to about half that. The expected traffic apocalypse never came, and when the Embarcadero Freeway came down, the city didn't just fix a traffic problem, it got its entire waterfront back. Milwaukee demolished the Park East Freeway for about $25 million. Land values rose over 180% in 5 years, followed by more than $1 billion in private investment. Rochester filled in its Inner Loop East for $21 million, producing $229 million in development and over 500 homes, mostly affordable. The traffic you're bracing for usually doesn't arrive. The new parks, new homes, and new investment do. The pattern isn't exactly subtle. Harbor Drive is where this entire debate began. In 1974, Portland became the first American city to intentionally remove a freeway. The riverfront road carried about 24,000 vehicles a day. No replacement highway was built, no new bypass. The road was simply removed. The predicted traffic chaos never showed up. The corridor became the 37-acre Tom McCall waterfront park, and today it works as the front yard of the entire city. The first American city to remove a freeway on purpose didn't collapse, it gained a park. The rest of the country spent the next 50 years arguing about whether that was even possible. Wider roads create more traffic. Removing highways rarely causes gridlock. Reconnecting severed neighborhoods pays for itself. Urban planning can connect people or trap them in expensive concrete trenches. These highways chose the second option. Like this video if you'd trade a few lanes for a park, and subscribe for more urban reality checks.